somewhat touchy-feely title, really spreading the profit but not yet the love, community renewables in South Africa. And I will share with you why that is. My presentation will consist out of two pieces of social research. So community renewables, what is that? It is a phrase which was coined by the World Wind Energy Association in 2011 or 2012, basically saying that community power projects need to fulfill at least one of these criteria, which means that projects either need to be owned to the majority by local stakeholders, or the voting control shall rest with the community-based organization, or at least the majority of social economic benefits shall be distributed locally. So these three criteria do not necessarily apply in the South African context, and the association, the World Wind Energy Association, also does confirm that they did a study on this. However, South Africa is currently implementing a very ambitious renewables program with very outstanding developmental objectives. So I'm getting to know this computer. Our wind projects have to fulfill certain economic development criteria, as mentioned before, of which 4 of them do stipulate that projects need to engage with local communities in a 50-kilometer radius. This map, also from Stephen Forder from the Energy Block, showcases the beneficiary radiuses around projects, and you can see that they overlap in certain areas, so-called hotspot areas around the country, where the engagements of projects with communities are double up or triple up. The 4 criteria communities need to engage with projects around, or projects with communities rather, is on the one hand socio-economic development, so projects need to share up to 1.5% of their revenue with local communities. Enterprise development can be spent in a 50-kilometer radius up to 0.6%, and local ownership needs to be shared with a community entity with a minimum of 2.5%, but in some projects reaches up to 40% or so. There's a 4th requirement, which is job creation, but my research interest really focuses on the 3, SED, ED, and local ownership. Why that is somewhat explained in the statement, which states that the government is really not guiding projects or companies on how to engage, govern, and invest these funds. So currently, the impact is really determined by company practice on this. Over the past 5 years since REAP was launched, the research context has changed slightly. In the beginning, it was really difficult to engage with companies, but because of competitiveness and confidentialities, which have decreased slightly, there's more scope to engage and really create platforms for collaborative learning. Some of this I would like to share with you. So where does the love come in? This is a campaign from Soweto last year, I think. It really started for me when the program was launched in 2011, and when companies came to my office doors and asked whether we could help with the socio-economic development plans, since I worked with poverty and energy. So we said yes, of course, and consulted to about 15 project bids, only to quickly realize that if this policy is going to succeed, there will be a significant of money available, which has huge opportunity for local communities, but also does create a challenge on how to implement meaningful community benefits through these funds. So we stepped back and tried to fundraise for a program of support through research, didn't manage, and eventually ran out of money. So after finalizing, we had two workshops which we ran in 2013, multi-stakeholder workshops, which were both facilitated by Sue Saul, who's going to speak as well today, and we wrote the first report on REAP, sort of reflecting on what we saw unfolding. And then it was really for me to either change my topic or change my job. So I changed my job and became a student. I was privileged to get a bursary to do my PhD. So the last 3 years I've spent researching in the industry and engaging with the industry, and that journey is about to finally be done, I hope, once our university is open again. Let's see. During these 3 years, I had the privilege to really engage with a lot of conversations and stakeholders in my action research design, which might mean for some people something. It's a methodology in social research, which means you can actually actively try and change things. You don't have to pretend you're observing objectively. So in that, I just took on a few roles, engaged with the industry associations, Soweto being one of them, Sophia, the PV association, another, We've got working groups and both associations which currently operate in conjunction. I founded a small NGO together with Sue as well. I started now collaborating with Stellenbosch University, Megan Davis was in the room as well. I consult in the private sector and sort of on policy level, and of course I am still a PhD candidate. So back to that research over the last 3 years, which really asked how are government, companies and communities shaping institutions in the implementation of community renewables in South Africa. In my research process, I undertook 3 data collection steps. The first one was to get access to the policy documents, and it might seem silly, but it wasn't that easy. So we had to hand in a PIA, Public Access to Information Act request, pay 1,500 Rand to get that pile of document in a box posted, to then be able to quote it and to publish on it. So we did that. That was the first step. Secondly, I negotiated access to the IPP office. So I got access to the procurement data and looked through all approved bids after the first 3 rounds. I analysed the SED plans of each and every project, and I have very heavy confidentiality agreements, so don't be nervous. But I analysed the content and I categorised projects to how they conceptualised community benefits within their projects. And I also did a quantitative analysis just to see how much are the financial commitments we are dealing with collectively. Thirdly, I then spent about 1 year at the field and did interviews in about 13 projects in the Western Cape, Eastern Cape and Northern Cape. So I interviewed everyone I could find basically, from national government, provincial, but mainly also companies, their ED managers, their community liaison officers, community leaders, community trustees sitting on community trusts, and everyone else who had really an opinion. So I captured what I could and found about 60 official interviews, yes. Some of them I had to negotiate access again through contractual confidentiality agreements, others not. It was a fascinating time, and it really allowed me to share my findings all over the show, presenting and in writing, through workshops as well, and at community events. This is a flyer we designed for community trusts and community members to just inform on the policy of what's going on. Now, the research findings, this is a bit theoretical and you do not have to find it interesting. I work with institutional theory, so it's also sociologically, like Doreen positioned herself. And I'm analysing what individuals and organisations do in order to create, maintain and disrupt institutions. So the academic term for this is institutional work. My findings presented in my thesis and in publications are grouped by stakeholder groups. So I look into government, communities and companies, very, very broadly. In very, very brief, what I found is that all stakeholders are active in creating, maintaining and disrupting institutions. An institution, by the way, is a pattern of behaviour that defines, governs or constrains action. So all stakeholders were active in the various forms of institutional work. What stood out and is interesting at this point, what I would like to highlight is that while everyone engaged, they didn't do it not everyone engaged at the same moment. So government, at policy level, policy formulation level, government basically defined the rules and created the institutions, maintained, disrupted some of them as well, but they were the active stakeholders. Companies then got active at bid stage, defining how project implementation would look, but actually on the ground, in the implementation, starting from sort of construction, government, companies and communities also were active. So communities only really got involved very, very late in the process. The decision making, however, at least from what my research observes, still remains largely controlled by companies. Communities are also the only stakeholder group that utilizes institutional work forms, which are called vandalism and destruction. So none of the other stakeholders has shown any vandalism or destruction efforts. What my research found is that for some people, this is simply the only option for them to make companies listed. My PhD empirical research ended in the middle of last year. So since, a lot has changed. And therefore, for this conference, I prepared together with Peter Westerby from Australia, Queensland University, and Sue's Solar paper, which looks into what we can learn from the existing knowledge on community development. So the paper speaks on the one hand about what government puts out are overlooked in the REAP program, as is obvious. The implementation discourse, however, amongst REAP stakeholders is slowly changing, and that is on the one hand due to increased experiences on the ground in the implementation, but also through gentle learning space facilitation, in our opinion. Hence, we think that there is ground to anticipate that local developmental impacts of REAP might have the potential to outperform the achievements of the extractive sectors. In support of this rather optimistic statement, I'd like to just share with you some of the initiatives I see in the country which I'm really excited about, which include, again, the energy block as mentioned before. In terms of industry, I'm fond of the working groups, of the roundtable discussions. I see an increased level of professionalization in the industry where at the beginning, maybe the executive or a CEO would deal with community relations, stakeholder engagements, community benefit, community development, and local community trusts. However, now companies are actually employing experienced and trained professionals in many of these tasks. There's a growing appreciation of monitoring, evaluation, and collaboration as well, in my view. On the government side, there are development coordination forums in Pop and Abington, which are really interesting, and the IPP office engaging with stakeholders and actually publishing some of the economic development findings, or data at least. And on the academic realm, of course, today's conference is a milestone, I suppose, the representation of this topic as well. And then there's an internationally and local network of researchers that is really growing. So I would like to leave you with 3 prompts for future research. These are important to my research agenda, and I would love to further connect with people who are also interested. So for me, research on REAP going forward has to scrutinize, accompany policy and practice internationally, into the continent, and globally. In doing so, it should support the democratic project, building capacity in civil society with a particular focus on gender, which is one of the themes completely ignored in REAP as well. It is critical, in my view, to utilize the scope available to develop responsive, embedded, and transdisciplinary research agendas and designs. With this, I would like to leave you with a wish. Let's spread the profit of community renewables with love and respect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got time.